It's lovely to be here again, and following on from such a great day that we've had this afternoon exploring student experiences, which has been lovely to hear. And I'm sure some of that will come out in what I'm going to say this evening. And I think a lot of what I'd written down in kind of my notes as to what I was going to say very much mirrors what Nicky has said. So it's very interesting to have heard that from the other side of the coin, so to speak, from a lecturer point of view. And I think the first thing I have to say before starting is just thank you to all the midwifery educators out there, because it has been such a challenging time, but the support that's been provided has really supported us to get through our programmes, and I think I can speak on behalf of all midwifery students when I say that. So thank you to all of the lecturers and midwifery educators out there, because you've pulled us through, dragged us through and supported us to get to where we are now. I think the first thing that I wanted to say about the past 3 years is just about the change that has occurred, because I started my programme in 2019, end of 2019. Obviously when COVID, none of us knew what COVID was, wasn't on our radar, and had a very specific idea of what my midwifery training was going to look like, how I'd get through my programme. And by the January of that year, things were starting to kind of come up in the news, and we were thinking, what's going to happen here? And obviously by the March, complete 360 turn. Being in first year, I was taken out of placement, which is not something any of us expected to happen. And I think that was probably one of the most challenging parts of my degree. Not being able to do what we'd started to love, having just done a first few blocks of placement, and just being at home, cut off from all of the support systems that we'd been starting to build over the first 6 months of our programme with our peers, because across midwifery training, your peers are essential. You need that support from each other, that shared experience, because it is such a unique experience that you can't really understand unless you're doing it. And having that support from those around you, those other students, is absolutely key. And suddenly being pulled away from them and having to find other ways to connect was really difficult. Alongside having my little boy at home, who was 1 at the time. So trying to manage lectures online, my husband working from home, my little boy, not being in placement, was all extremely challenging, and trying to work out how that was going to look and not quite knowing when it was going to end was really difficult. But I think we've come to learn over the past couple of years how to manage that change. And although change can be really difficult, and I think every time we've come back into placement, we do blocks at my university, so we're in for 6 weeks, out for 6 weeks, coming back into placement, there's something new that's changed. Even now, every time you go back, there's something different, a new guideline, a new regulation, wearing masks, not wearing masks, PPE. Trying to keep a track of what's going on is really difficult, but I think we've come to learn that as kind of our norm, that change is normal now. And even the way university is running changes every time we come back in, as to what the university has said we can do face-to-face or can't, like Nicky was talking about, and coming to kind of learn what online learning looks like, and learning to learn online, I think too, has been something that we've all had to do, because it is such a different kind of learning. And actually from a student point of view, I think it's been a really positive thing to come back to having that balance of online versus face-to-face, because looking at the different ways students learn, some students feel much more confident to be able to type their views rather than speaking them out in class. People who wouldn't be confident enough to put their hand up and share their thoughts might be confident enough to type it out. So I think having that balance is a real positive of being able to accommodate lots of different learning types. And you mentioned Mentimeter before, Nicky. We use that a lot at my university, and it's a great way of capturing people's views online. So I think we've learned a lot. That change has forced us to do things that we wouldn't have otherwise done, but has brought lots of positives that we've been able to keep in practice in learning and education, which has definitely, I think, been of benefit to us as students. But being back face to face is wonderful, I do have to say. We had a session a few weeks ago for the first time with all of the cohorts in university at once, and it was the first time in my degree we'd been able to do that. So it was lovely to be able to connect, which kind of brings me on to my second point, which was about belonging. I think it's been hard to know where you belong. A lot of the learning's been kind of totally online from a lot of my degree, and so finding those connections and which kind of friendship groups you belong in, which cohorts you like, where you belong within your cohort, has been difficult, and we've had to find ways to adapt. We've not had those lunch breaks where you might chat and make friends and meet other people in your cohort, or just chatting at the end of a lecture. So building those relationships has been harder because we'd only just started to form those groups when we went totally online. So we've had to develop ways of talking to each other through WhatsApp groups mainly. I know we discussed WhatsApp groups this afternoon and how much that has been a key element of linking up students. And I know that for my year, it's been a great way of talking about lectures, what we do understand, what we don't understand, those whispers that you might have in a classroom saying, oh, do you understand that? Could you explain that to me? That's just happening over WhatsApp instead. So we've just had to find ways to adapt to those relationships. And I think the same in practice. It's been hard because of being not being in practice for so long over my degree, kind of having that 6 months out. Finding that space as a student where you belong in practice, particularly when staff have been so stretched. Your practice supervisors are struggling with fatigue and burnout themselves. Finding where you fit within that practice environment has been definitely a challenge, particularly as we've been having to kind of catch up constantly with my year group, having been missed so much of our placement areas. But I think coming back face to face, and as we become kind of more a part of that practice area now, we've been back in placement for a while now, is definitely improving, and that face to face connection that we can have in university is just amazing. And I think we'll never get over the fact now that whenever we go back in face to face, oh, this is so nice, it's so nice, yeah, that excitement, oh, we're in university, we're together, we can have this connection. That's not gone, even though we've been kind of hybrid back in face to face for a while now. And the other thing I wanted to chat about is experience. Like I said before, being out of placement for so long, we've had to be kind of catching our tails a little bit, trying to get those experiences that we needed, particularly in spoke placement areas, where it might have been more difficult to access the experiences we needed. And then on top of that, with the increasing student numbers, it has been quite a challenge at times to gain the experiences that we've needed. But on top of that, we've had the strangest experience we could ever have, which I think has been a positive thing. Having that ability to be able to react to a pandemic and to get through it has given us such a strong foundation from which to move into qualification, that we know that we can deal with pretty much anything that comes our way, and we can come out of it stronger, and we can successfully do what we need to do even within that time of adversity. So I think it's a really positive, it can be seen as a real positive thing too. And I think kind of pulling all those strands together, looking at what students have been able to do despite all of this challenge, they've been able to take that and become leaders. You know, we've seen this afternoon what midwifery societies have been doing online. They were talking about online sessions that they've been running, keeping in contact with students, wellbeing sessions, the writing that students have done, coming together to create amazing resources. I know across Greater Manchester over the pandemic, students across universities came together to create an antenatal education programme for parents who obviously weren't able to access that kind of resource face-to-face at the time. So it's created this environment in which students have really been able to step up and show what they're made of, in a way that perhaps they might not have been able to before, or wouldn't feel as confident in accessing that kind of leadership aspect. So I think that it's been a real positive in that sense, being able to really push students to take that extra step up and be that midwife that they want to be. As a student, show those leadership skills and create some amazing resources, some amazing projects. So I think every student, like Nicky said, who has still on the programme, still stepping through, still making it, to reach your 40 births, to reach all your competencies, to get through those assignments, has done such an incredible job and has managed to still keep finding that joy despite those challenges. So I think a big well done to every student who's got through the past 2.5, 3 years, because you're doing an amazing job.